Could you be watching me?
Yeah, it's been that way for like 40 minutes.
Now we're all watching the clock. There you go. 10 seconds. Watching.
It's been that way for like 40 minutes.
Good evening and welcome to the International Council meeting. Members of the public have been provided with the following methods to watch and or participate in this open public meeting. Attend the township office located at 2958 Greenfield Road. Watch the live stream by accessing the meeting on the township's YouTube page. Attend electronically to observe the meeting or to speak to item 9, items for discussion exclusively on the agenda. To attend electronically, members of the public were requested to register with the clerk's division in advance. Or you can submit written comments to the clerk's division that have been provided to the mayor and council prior to the meeting and will form part of the public record. I'd like to now call the meeting to order, and can I have approval of the agenda, please?
Myself, my Council Williams, that council adopt the April 24th, 2023 council meeting agenda as presented. Following addendum, an additional piece of correspondence received for item 11.111. Correspondence received from Karen Scott Booth regarding the Chuck Pit Ontario Land Tribunal.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. I would now like to do the territorial acknowledgements, and as I do it, I'd also like to mention that today is the Armenian Genocide Remembrance Day. This day, 1.5 million Armenians were assassinated in genocide. I am Armenian. My Armenian associate is Sahidian. I'm the daughter of Levon Sahidian and Avishai Gilan Goshen. I can remember my father's face every time before my majesties, because he didn't want his brothers and sisters survived. He would pray back often Armenia. I didn't know someone was alive. And we would all stand perfectly still and watch his face and wait. And he never ever got that call. So a lot of history has gone on, but what's even more frightening is what's happening today. Azerbaijan has blocked off a section of Armenia and has for the last 160 days. And they are not allowing food or water in, they're allowing to starve them to death. Those that need medical aid, there's no medical aid going in. There was a bus trip from Armenia of children that went into the area and have been in there for 160 days away from their families. This is happening today. When we look at that and we look at the Armenian genocide and we look at what happened to the indigenous people and we look at what happens in Ukraine, the Ukrainian children are being taken into Russia and the parents can't find them. We have to do better. I don't understand why we think we have the right to do these things to other people. So now with the indigenous acknowledgement, remembering that in our own country, the residents was crucified for this. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory, the Haudenosaunee, Danish, Navi, and the Neutral people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements and their contributions to our community. We offer this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation between indigenous and non-indigenous people of Canada. And now I would ask us to pause and reflect on what's happening in our world and what has happened. And let's pray we do better. Thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in general Ventura? Seeing none, delegations, Kara Christian, with climate action water region regarding results of communities 2020 greenhouse gas inventory report and final outcomes of the first climate action. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy meeting. Just to share from here. Thank you so much for having me, Parent Council. My name is Kira Chisholm and I'm the plan manager with Climate Action Waterloo Region. And joining me today is Sylvia Davidson, the Executive Director of Stable Waterloo Region, and Mary Jane Patterson, the Executive Director of Green Solutions. All right, so a little bit about who we are. Climate Action WR is a collaboration between local organizations, municipalities, and community members focused on climate change mitigation. We are co-led by both Green Solutions and Sustainable Water in the Region as a collaborative partnership that is funded by the region and the 3 cities, but working collaboratively with all 8 municipalities. And I'd like to at this time just acknowledge the wonderful contributions of Michelle Besant on our collaborative partners meetings. And so at a high level, we coordinate the activities of climate action plans and strategies for water in the region, measure and monitor progress towards our climate action targets, and engage the community more broadly. So what brings us here today? Back in 2013, we conducted our first community greenhouse gas inventory, and emissions came from 5 sectors: transportation, workplaces, homes, agriculture, and waste. And this led to Water in the Region's first climate action plan to achieve a 6% emissions reduction target between 2013 and 2020, based on the 2010 baseline year. So that's an approximately an 842,000 ton reduction over 7 years. So we are here today to close the chapter on this first climate action plan and report progress since we last. So how did we do? In 2017, we released the first installment of this Our Progress, Our Path report for the re-inventory using 2015 data, and at this time reported a 5.2% reduction compared to the baseline year. We saw an increase in transportation emissions and decreases in both homes and workplaces. This was largely attributed to the closure of provincial coal power plants in achieving this 5.2% reduction. At this time, we also saw reduced consumption and increased efficiency in both homes and workplaces. So, due to the abnormal circumstances in 2020 and the drastic effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, we conducted a re-inventory for 2 years, 2020 to account for the end of the 6% target, and 2019 to look at a year that would more closely resemble business as usual. And so the full report is attached to this council presentation and available online as well on the Climate Action website. So in 2019, we see that we maintained some of the emissions reductions from 2010 at 3.7%, though this is slightly higher than 2015. And in 2020, we see a decrease of 14.4%, more than doubling the emissions reduction target of 6%. Though 2019 shows us that without the drastic impact of the pandemic, we would have been unlikely to meet this 6% target. So looking a little closer at the data with a little more detail, we continue to see that transportation of goods and people is the highest emitting sector, followed by workplaces or the ICI sector in second, and then our homes third. And so while we did experience an upward trajectory of emissions since 2015, we are encouraged to see that our community's emissions are not growing at the same rate as our population, demonstrated in the per capita emissions rate just at the top of the graph there. In 2010, as the baseline year, this was at 8.4 tons, in 2015 at 7.5, and despite a rise in absolute emissions in 2019, it's still lower at 7.1 tons per person. We do still have quite far to go as a community. Just a few key takeaways from the report. As I mentioned, since 2010, our transportation emissions remain the largest contributor and continue to increase despite gains in fuel efficiency. So it is essential that we change the ways we move both goods and people. The second takeaway, so energy efficiency, fuel switching, and local energy generation provide a significant opportunity for transformational change across all sectors. And finally, that there have been many promising initiatives that we're only beginning to see the greenhouse gas reduction benefits of. And we are encouraged by all the stories that are throughout the full report, and the many more that we weren't able to capture without the report being 100 pages long. So where do we go from here? We came to you in June 2021 with Transform WR, and all 8 municipalities unanimously endorsed the strategy, Water in the Region's transition to an equitable, prosperous, resilient, and low carbon community. So this is our community's long-term strategy to reduce emissions 80% by the year 2050 and outlines actions to reduce emissions 50% by the year 2030. So the results of our 2019 and 2020 re-inventory underscore the importance of transformative climate action outlined in this strategy and strong collaboration to significantly reduce our emissions. Each municipality has an important role to play and leads many of the actions in this strategy. And in addition, our work at Climate Action continues to be raising awareness that this is everyone's strategy in the community and that everyone has a role to play in taking climate action. Thank you so much for your time today, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Councilors, any questions? Councilor Rose.
Thank you for the update. I was wondering if you could also provide any information when it comes to the financial cost of and savings that we've experienced so far when it comes to our partners.
Sorry, the financial cost of the progress that we made.
Correct. Like I'm assuming a lot of this progress has been more passive rather than an active progress, but I'm sure that there's been some cost savings that we might have seen across the region or some expenses that we've already done. So I was just wondering if that's information is available.
Yeah, I am not sure to the exact particulars of it. We didn't measure against a financial baseline, but still we are attaining some of those greenhouse gas reductions still from the closure of provincial coal power plants. That's still a large influence in how we retain that 3.7%, which is really speaking to how we need to decarbonize the grid, because that influences just so much of how many emissions we have in our energy consumption units. So that certainly still remains a large contributing factor to that 3.7% reduction.
Thank you.
If I may, I have concerns about the increased intensity of homes in the cities because they're taking out grasslands and woodlands and putting more homes in apartment buildings. So I'm worried it's going to become this concrete jungle. And as you know, for water retention out in schoolyards, taking out the blacktops to allow for grass so that water can go seeping in. But in the cities, we're filling in every area. How do we protect from that happening?
So we were really encouraged to see the 15-minute neighborhood model, which is reference to in Transform WRB adopted in the regional official plan to be building dense and smart communities with good connectivity and good green space in them, and then thinking about how we pair this with climate adaptation plans to make sure that we are not causing future havoc in those areas. And very happy to see all the work that went into holding that countryside line as well. So we were encouraged by that, and we'd like to see that.
Yeah, except a lot of the diagrams that I saw showed that the green spaces were taken out to put in townhouses in the park. And that's my big concern. I had the privilege of visiting the new homes for the homeless up at Oak Street. And they are going to put concrete in the center of it and blacktop it. And I said, why don't you leave the center core as a grassland picnic area to allow for the water to run off and also as a green space so they're not going to do that. Because these people don't drive cars, so they don't need the parking space. But they would nice to have grass so the water can seep through into their system. So I'm concerned about that, and I hope you'll keep an eye on that when people are building and the cities to make them say, you know what? People need to breathe. We need the oxygen provided by the green. Thank you, I've done my lunch. Anyone else? Okay, can I have a motion, please?
Moved by myself, second by Council Rowland, that the delegation received from Kyra Chisholm with climate action water region regarding results of the community's 2020 greenhouse gas re-inventory report and the final outcome of the first climate action plan be received.
All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies. Have a nice day.
Our pleasure.
Now we're on to the consent agenda. Oh, I would like to inform everybody that Scott Tilly is here. He is online. Scott, can you turn your camera on, please?
Sorry, I cannot at this point.
Okay, I understand. You're in the rural areas. We totally understand. Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. So does Scott have this motion? Scott, do you have motion for, committee of the whole recommendations for items, under number 8?
I'm sorry, where I'm driving right now, I don't have the quality right there. Can you say that once again, please, Sue?
If you're driving, you don't have the motion. to read,
Okay.
correct?
No, I cannot do that at this moment, sorry.
Right, that's okay. So, Ms. Sage is going to read it for you. Councillor Tilly, you can still move it. It's item 8, which is, from, our council meeting the other day. It's, open council. You don't have to read it in its entirety, since it's several pages.
It's a move by Councillor Tilly and seconded by Councillor Oxner that council adopt the following recommendations as presented by committee of the whole dated April 11th, 2023. Item A, report number FIN-09-2023, the reopening and discussion of the 10-year capital forecast, and that's as presented. Item B, report number FIN-09-2023, reopening and discussion on the 10-year capital forecast, that's as presented. Item C, report number PD-12-2023, request to waive a cultural heritage impact assessment and approve the alterations of a listed heritage property to demolish a rear addition and reconstruct a front porch on list heritage property at 1283 Swan Street, file number CH-02-23. That's as presented. Item D, report number PD-13-2023, approval of a development agreement for 250 Northumberland Street Air, as presented. Item E, report number REC-07-2023, request a proposal award ND-2023-1816 for facilities life cycle assessment as presented. Item F, report number REC-08-2023, leisure and community services 2023 spring summer outdoor programs as presented. Item G, report number REC-09-2023, request for proposal award ND-2023-7 for Challenger and Legacy Roads, park play structures and swing as presented. Item H, report number REC-10-2023, community garden partnership with the North Country Garden Club as presented. Item I, report number PW-06-2023, Piper Street guardrail tender ND-2023-C16-RFP-EW02 and as presented. Item J, report number PW-07-2023, letter of credit reduction request for 288543 Ontario Incorporated and 839658 Ontario Incorporated, file number 30T-14301 as presented. Item K, report number PW-08-2023, North Dumfries Community Complex edition of the new ice pad as presented. Item L, report number bylaw-03-2023, noise bylaw exemption request, backyard Saginaw at 88 Mitchell Street Air as presented. Item M, report number CLK-08-2023, proposed amendment to the 2023 meeting schedule as presented. Item N, report number CLK-09-2023, convening of town hall meetings policy as presented. And item O, report number FD-04-2023, fire department incident response summary for March 2023 as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Sage. So that was passed by Scott Tilly, moved by Tilly, and seconded by Councillor Oxner. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And next we have report 2. And that's Councillor Williams, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Earlman, that council approve the following meeting minutes
Special Budget Council meeting minutes dated January 26, 2023. Council meeting minutes dated January 30, 2023. Orientation, training, and education workshop meeting minutes dated February 6, 2023. Committee of the whole meeting minutes dated February 13, 2023. Council meeting minutes dated February 21st, 2023. Orientation, training, and education workshop meeting minutes dated February 21, 2023. Regular council meeting minutes dated February 27, 2023. Orientation, training, and education workshop meeting minutes dated March 6, 2023. Committee of the whole meeting minutes dated March 13, 2023. Regular council meeting minutes dated March 27, 2023. And council of the whole meeting minutes dated April 11, 2023.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Nine point one is the correspondence received from the Minister for Seniors and Accessibility regarding the 2023 Ontario Seniors of the Year Award. So anyone who would like to put a name forward? Is there a time frame to see over here?
Deadline's the end of this month.
A couple of days. What do you think about Jim Owen? Doing, he's been involved in a lot of things, in the garden club and the senior school. And put Jim stays forward? Okay, so we'll put Jim over down, and Councilor Wong, have a motion, please.
Myself, by Councilor Kelly, that the correspondence received from the Minister for Seniors and Accessibility regarding the 2023 Ontario Senior of the Year Award be received, and that Jim Oliver be nominated for the 2023 Ontario Senior Achievement Award, and that staff be directed to submit their recommendation through to the Minister.
All those in favor? Folks, keep your eyes open next year for who you want to nominate. 9.2, correspondence from Brad Smith regarding the lights at Victoria Park being extended to 11 p.m. CEO William sent us last year's resolution, which we decided at 10:30 was adequate time. I believe we had a report from staff stating that very little activity was used as it was monitored. Is there anyone who wishes to extend it to 11?
10:30.
Yes, that's what our bylaw says. We made that bylaw 2022.
So, Madam Mayor, the Parks bylaw, once it's permanent activity, everything shuts down at 9 o'clock. Council on Mr. Smith's request from May of 2022. They directed staff when the LED lights were commissioned at both Victoria Park Tennis Court as well as Schmidt Park Tennis Court. Whether that be operating hours for the two tennis court facilities, it would be 10:30 p.m. During the operating season. That resolution remains in effect. And so when those two park facilities open up with proper lighting, they will be to 10:30 unless council changes parameters, which would require a new resolution.
So council for the motion basically says to receive for information, but no one wishes to change the time. Councilor Austin.
Just a comment. I think this would be a good test year because I'm hearing that the pickleball courts are being very well used. There's a lot of people that show up to play, so maybe people will hang out till 10:30. Play pickle. I don't know if they seem quite popular in the outdoor courts.
Can I ask the staff monitors this year and see if a lot of people still willing to stay out past 10:30, and we can look at this thing in the future. Okay, so we'll just receive Mr. Lee from Councilor Austin, please. (9.2).
Yeah, it doesn't say receipt.
No. Received from back at the personalized. What does it say? It's been received. The last two words say
There's
received.
the park be extended to 11 p.m.
The next sentence is. For spring, summer.
Oh, okay, so we're just receiving.
Just receiving.
You know, it's talking about the- okay, thank you. Move on by Stelling, second by Councillor Wells, that the correspondence received from Brad Smith requesting the lights at Victoria Park at Shed Park be extended until 11 p.m. for the spring and summer be received.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Next is the motion for the auditors for Greenwich Energy. Councilor Evans, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Armstrong, that report CEO report number 05-2023 be received, and that council approve the appointment of KPMG as the auditors for the Grand Branch Corporation for fiscal year 2023.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Next one is Council Tilly's motion again. It's extremely long. Ms. Sage will read it for Council Tilly. Oh, it's correspondence. Does anyone want to pull anything? Councilor Rose.
I'd like to pull item 11.1.1 and 11.1.9.
1.1 and I was also looking at the one for Bill 3, which we can see that it's in regards to harassment by politicians. Everyone's, yes, please. So, Councilor Welch, 11.1.1, the school bus cameras.
Yes, I was wondering if we could add our voices to that. Obviously a lot of school buses, especially on rural roads, but traffic's already going a lot faster than the speed limit, and traffic is ignored quite a bit. And I personally had close calls, my kids' cars just racing by. So anyway, this is a bit of a personal thing as well, but I think it's an important one.
Councilors, are we with us addressing that? Councilor Austin?
Well, question, what are these cameras catching? License plates? People in the cars?
I imagine they would have to capture the license plate. Otherwise, the police would have no opportunity to follow up with that
Right.
vehicle.
But that still doesn't prove who was driving the vehicle because they're not allowed to videotape drivers, correct?
So it'd be similar, Madam Mayor, through Councillor Rostock. If it is capturing the license plate, it would be similar to our automatic speed enforcement as well as our red light traffic signals. It's capturing the license plate. And the legislation for those two other elements specifically speaks to the owner of the licensed vehicle.
Okay, so the object of this is that if this happens, they're caught on tape, they're charged. Okay, good.
So council endorses? We will direct staff to do a resolution for us on this. Thank you. And next is the one stopping harassment and abuse by local leaders and do we want to endorse this? The thing is, it's the strongest legislation against politicians. It's the only, like, I think there's nothing else that can remove a politician. Oh, hello, Councilor Tilly.
Oh, okay.
You just made it in time to read your long motion.
Fantastic.
So we're talking about a correspondence 11.1.7, which is the stopping harassment and abuse of by local leaders. CEO McNeely?
So, Madam Mayor, as you recall from the training session, when we had the Township's Integrity Commission here to speak with members of council about the code of conduct. Township's current code of conduct has aspects related to harassment, both peers as colleagues around the horseshoe, but also with staff. And the Integrity Commissioner would only be able to use the roster of penalties as set out in the legislation in this regard for offense of the code of conduct. Bill 5 goes well beyond what is contemplated in our current bill.
And it's also true that, as it stands today, I just think it's, if somebody goes to, and puts a complaint against the council, whatever, and the ombudsman looks at it,
The integrity commission.
integrity, thank you, comes up and says, well, this is what council should do. It's only a recommendation, because I believe in 2 cases in the city of Cambridge, they didn't follow through with the recommendation.
The integrity commission provides a written report that's made public with its findings. And it's council through the majority that has to decide whether to embrace the recommendation from the integrity commission. But even with all of those authorities, there's certain limitations. Council does not have the ability to remove a peer from council. That's what I'm saying. You can sanction, you can place garnishing of wages for up to a period of at least 3 months as a maximum, but you cannot do that by dismissal or removal of a member of council. Bill 5 in its draft form would allow that mechanism achieved under the most extreme circumstances.
What are your thoughts, council? Do you want to address Bill 5? Council Larson?
We have an integrity commissioner, we have a code of conduct. I hate to think that we go through all the work to do that, and now it'll supersede by something that generalized with other townships and stuff. I like the idea of having our own code of conduct that suits our needs. I'm just wondering if this will be generalized, because there are many different townships, cities, etc., that have larger councils and stuff, and may have different issues. I don't know if that's the case, but we've spent our time with the integrity commissioner, and I'm personally satisfied with our code of conduct. It's up to council, obviously.
And this just takes into consideration things that have never come up so far. Sexual harassment, abuse, and those things as they exist today will not remove a person from their office. But Bill 5 will say that that person can be removed because he's a threat to another individual. So that's the big difference, and it's hard to say. See, McNeely, so would it be again the integrity commissioner that you would have the complaint? It would be looked at by the integrity commissioner again if Bill 5 was passed?
Based on the way the legislation is currently drafted, yes, it would still be within the purview of the integrity commissioner. They just have an expanded mandate on currently captured conduct. And once again, you have to do a public reporting and a recommendation. Whether it's under our code of conduct or it's under Bill 5, it does not preclude that individual that has been harassed to seek charges in the court system and or remedy through the courts in terms of seeking damages or levy. Whether Bill 5 goes ahead or not, those other avenues are available depending on the nature and severity of whatever it is. Bill 5 will change that aspect.
Thoughts, councils? Council Gomes?
I think I support Bill 5. And it's not because it really is targeting people who are excessively abusive, and sadly, those things happen, and sadly, they can even happen here. So I personally, I think this is actually a good remedy, because remedies through the courts, you're still working with one person and you're still stuck. Yeah.
And remember, students work to take years. Whereas this, I think, when you go to it's quicker. So I'm gonna ask that we support it. It may not happen at our level, and thank God it doesn't, but it may happen at other levels, and I would like that protection to be there for other people. I can remember a minister being quite belligerent to me, and threatening me, and I thought, we will see that. Two other people remembered it. So if that's okay, can we move on, staff to again prevent that motion to us as important? Thank you. And the next one is 11.1.11. Council Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I just wanted to bring this correspondence up for an opportunity to ask two questions. One was just related to the Chuddick pit and our standing with regards to that whole tribunal hearing and how we're progressing on putting together our defense or our presentation. So that's question one. So I guess that would be through to see and get that answer first.
Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Williams. On the 15th of March, there was a procedural hearing convened by ULT, the Ontario Land Tribunal. The intent of that initial procedural hearing was to confirm who would be a party versus a participant at a future hearing, to better understand the order of magnitude of any issues that one or more parties may identify as to, at this point in time, the zoning bylaw. That's all that's in front of the Ontario Land Tribunal. So Township Legal Counsel identified at the procedural hearing that the application in front of the Ontario Land Tribunal is incomplete, as the matters that are under the Agricultural Resources Act, specifically all the licensing and conditions that would fall within the purview of the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, had not been transferred to the Ontario Land Tribunal. And as we know, zoning only deals with a very small range of issues, and the broader performance-related matters such as dust, noise, and hours of operation, haul routes, and the rehabilitation, etc., all falls within license provisions administered through the Ministry of the Agricultural Resources Act. So there will be a procedural order coming out of the March 15th hearing that will require the matters associated with the Agricultural Resources Act to be transferred to the Ontario Land Tribunal. So all interrelated matters will be dealt with in a consolidated fashion. So that was the first aspect. So there was issues list, but they were narrowly defined only related to the zoning bylaw amendment, because that's all the board had at that point in time. And so we protected our ability to issue the revised issues list once the board was in possession of their Resources Act files, because now the listing, what we wish to assess, discuss, debate, provide evidence, is going to be much broader in its scope. The 18th of September is the resumption of the next round of hearings through the Ontario Land Tribunal, and assuming that documentation from the province is turned over to the Ontario Land Tribunal in a timely manner, then we still believe we can meet that September 18th timeline. There will be a report to council initially in camera through legal counsel on next steps related to what we hope to be the consolidated hearing. And then assuming council is in concurrence with the recommendations, we'd be doing a report out in open session on next steps.
Thank you. The next question I had was specifically towards one item in the email that talked about that we were declining at a meeting with the city of Cambridge around the dance pit because of advice of legal counsel. And I was just wondering if that could be explained.
I did not decline. I accepted, and that was called back by the city of Cambridge saying that their CAO Cambridge, said that I was not to attend. Suggested, so therefore I had accepted and was told that it was not for my to attend. So that's to be clarified. Thank you very much for asking that. So no further questions. Councillor Tilly, you got this, but you do not have to read it in its entirety. It is a correspondence. Do you have it? I'm sorry, thank you.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Rollman, the following being received for the purpose of information, 11.1.1. The receiving of the documents, 11.1.1 through to 11.1.13.
All those in favor? Carrie, thank you. So, Councilor Rowan, next you have your acknowledgements.
Myself, and Councilor Williams, that the following bylaw be taken as read in first and second time.
First and fourth, is there any other business? Councilor Williams.
I have a question, to the CEO of Neely regarding the interim bylaw control report that was asked by the previous council meeting.
CEO McNeely.
So, Madam Mayor, through Councilor Williams, staff and legal counsel are working on a return report to Township Council on the interim control bylaw. In November of 2022, the province came out with Bill 23 that made certain changes to the Planning Act as well as other pieces of legislation. And as part of the release of Bill 23, province identified that they were going to be reissuing new provincial planning statement as well as further adjustments to the Planning Act. We did anticipate those changes to be introduced a little bit earlier in calendar year 2023. They were actually released by the province the first week of April. And there are changes coming. Both Bill 79 and both provincial policies being affecting a broad range of land use activities, including aggregates. And so staff are preparing a report for the May 5th council meeting related to the summary of the changes at a high level on the new draft provincial planning statement, as well as the implications arising from Bill 79. Now, I'm not going to be speaking in that report in the context exclusively of aggregates. It's talking about the changes to how land use planning would be affected by proposed documents, because both pieces are out for public consultation, and that would allow Township Council to take a position if they wish on one or more aspects, and have that as part of the public record for consideration by the province. We do expect that Bill 79 itself will be approved before the summer recess, because there's implementation dates that lead July 1st. So we know that it's going to be dealt with in a timely fashion. We believe the aspects associated with the proposed provincial planning statement will occur later this summer or early this fall. It does not need to go back to the legislature because it's done through an order of council, which is effectively the provincial cabinet. Because it's a provincial cabinet position. So in our update report on the interim control bylaw, we will be accounting for some of the changes that came up in 23, Bill 79, which we expect to be approved in a couple of weeks, as well as the provincial planning statement, because it does actually affect key aspects associated with aggregates and how aggregates will be reviewed, as well as appeal mechanisms that are now reintroduced related to interim control bylaws. That would initially be an in-camera report for the legal counsel, and then assuming that council is comfortable with the direction, it would then be released to the public matter at a meeting a few weeks removed, so that we can provide notification back to those individuals that originally asked for consideration of the trip bylaw, so that they have the ability to see the staff report, as well as obviously being able to attend that future meeting, to speak to the staff report.
Any other questions, councilors? Anything councilors would like to report? Seeing none, now we can have a meeting on bylaws, please, Councilor Bowman.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Williams, that the following bylaw be taken as read first and second time, bylaw number 3389-23, being a bylaw to students and services in respect of registered plan 58M-589, bylaw number 3402-23, being a bylaw to exempt land from park law control, bylaw number 3403-23, being a bylaw to implement development agreement for 250 Northern Street, bylaw number 3404-23, being a bylaw to appoint municipal law enforcement officer. Kelly Wood.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Councilor Williams, the next one, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Roman, that the following bylaw will be taken as read a third time and finally passed. Bylaw number 3389-23, being bylaw to students and services in respect of registered plan 58M-589. Bylaw number 2-23, being a bylaw to accept lands from park plot control. Bylaw number 3403-23, being bylaw to implement development agreement for 2250 Northumberland. Bylaw number 3404-23, being a bylaw to appoint a municipal law enforcement officer, Kelly Butch.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And Councilor Austin, please.
Moved by myself, second by Council Roman, that bylaw number 3405-23, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on April 24th, 2023. Be read a first, second, third time and be finally passed, signed, and sealed by the mayor and clerk.
All those in favor? It's carried, thank you. Councilor Kelly, the agenda, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Ossner, that whereas business before the council meeting has been completed at 7:47 PM, and be it resolved this meeting adjourns and meets again Thursday, May 4th at 6 PM for a special strategic meeting.
All those in favor? It's carried, thank you.